Well, good evening. Welcome to the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum. My name is Christina Shutt, and I am the, new-ish, we'll use that word, executive director. I've been here about 3 months, a little over 3 months. And it is my pleasure both to welcome you here, but really to hopefully facilitate and be a part of hearing what you all have to say. You are all individuals here in the community, and those of you joining us online as well. And so we want to really hear how we can be more invested here in Springfield, more invested in Sangamon County, how we can be good neighbors, as I often say. So thank you for helping us be a part of that conversation. I want to really stress that tonight is a start, not an end point, that we are always looking for ways that we can have more continuous feedback, more regular feedback with our community here, with our visitors, like I said, both here in Springfield, but also around the country. So know that this is a start. Just to give you a little bit of context about why we're doing this and what we're doing. So we are part of both thinking about what the museum can and should be into the future. What does it mean for us to be an anchor institution in this community and to embrace that role? What does that look like through the lens of equity and diversity and inclusion and accessibility? How do we do that, right? How do we be better neighbors? And so this conversation, as well as I know I've had meetings with a number of folks here in this room, as well as I imagine people online. We've been having staff conversations, conversations with our board. So we've been talking to lots of folks and gathering that kind of feedback. So again, this is part of sort of a larger overarching narrative in terms of what we're trying to do to think about how we can be better community stewards. So joining me today and really helping to facilitate our conversation is Richard Josie. Hi, Richard. Richard is the founder and principal consultant for Collective Journeys, a consultancy for museums and historical organizations interested in becoming inclusion-centered organizations. Richard has spent over 20 years building inclusive narratives at the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation and the Minnesota Historical Society. Richard has a host and list of accomplishments and in terms of the work that he has done. And so we are so proud to have him joining us virtually as part of our conversation. And again, it's helping to facilitate this. But without further ado, I want to welcome Richard. So let's give him a big Springfield welcome. I don't know, we can kind of clap for him. Okay. And I'll turn it over to him. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Christina. I appreciate it. Peace and blessings. Good evening. Yeah, it's evening there. Good evening to y'all. First of all, I just want to acknowledge the fact that I'm resting right now here in Newport News, Virginia, originally home of the Powhatan Indian people, and I just want to take a moment just to speak to the level of gratitude that I have for them and all of the stewards of the land over the course of time. It's important to note that. It's also important to say to you all that I am super excited to be here in this moment with you all. Maybe a few years ago, maybe 6 years ago, when I was working at the Minnesota Historical Society, we were doing some work with one of the more controversial sites there, historic Fort Snelling. And we were having a conversation with the Dakota Indian community. And Dakota peoples, just like other peoples, aren't necessarily monolithic groups. So when we got them together and we were having conversations about what could this site do into the future, well, they all weren't necessarily in agreement. Some people wanted to tear it down. Other people wanted to do, educational programs. Another group wanted to do something else. And there was so much of this tension in the room that one of the elders stood up and he said something that has carried me ever since that day. He said, look, whenever we're in these conversations, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of ancestor will you be? For you see, in every deliberation, and every decision that's made, it's going to last us for 7 generations. And when he said that, that made the gravity, that caused me to feel this sense of gravity for conversations like I hope we'll have tonight. And that this conversation is about, not necessarily, where we are right now, but who we want to be. And what are the sorts of things that we can put in place so that 7 generations from now, they can look back and say this conversation and the decisions that were made coming from this conversation were beneficial to them. So let me bring up my slides, because it's really less about me talking and it's more about hearing from you all and getting a sense from you all as to what's possible and where we can go with some things. So there it is. So our aim tonight is pretty simple. I really want to get a sense of, identify the current relationship between the museum and the community. I want to start to define and have some conversations about what that ideal relationship, what does the ideal look like, feel like, smell like? And then I got a few questions, lined up to get us to start to explore, what are the sorts of things and obstacles that we're going to need to be mindful of in order for us to get to that point. In any of these conversations, I love to create spaces where we can be safe, but we can also be brave. And it calls for us to have a shared understanding as to what I'll call ground rules. And I'll read them off really quickly. The idea of listening fully and respectfully, make space for all voices to be heard, seek first to understand, ask questions to clarify. I never want to hold a debate. I really want to just get us to a point where we all are hearing from each other. And you'll notice as I'm going through these that I'm framing this as less of me giving you all a presentation, but more so facilitating conversation and ideas. And in some ways, that conversation may be between you all. So I want you all to feel comfortable with that. I want you to stay open. Everybody's free to change their minds. Be mindful to speak for yourself, maybe not necessarily as a representative of any group. So sorts of information that you give that may reflect on the group is really from what you believe or what you see or what you feel. That's important. I've made myself look crazy trying to represent a bunch of people before, and also make an effort to suspend one's own judgment as we listen to others. Generally, when I do these, I ask if there are any others, but I'm looking at the crowd. I'm seeing we have some folks online, so I think we'll be able to navigate and negotiate that tonight. But just keep these things in mind as we start to break through some of these. Just a quick word about how to interact. So I know they're on site. There's some staff and folks that are there who have microphones that they'll be passing around and bringing around. But also in this scenario, I want you all, if you all have your cell phone numbers, your cell phones, to take a look at this number, 217-292-6196. And in many ways, I've been one of those people where I've been in these large, in these spaces, and I don't necessarily want the spotlight to come on me. So if I had a way to provide some input without having to have the camera on me or anything, it would have been beneficial. So I wanted to make sure I did that for you all as well. And each one of the slides where I have these questions, the answers will show up on the screen. They're all anonymous, so your name won't be attached to it. But each one of the slides where we have questions, this phone number will be listed on there. It's the same number, and then we'll take it in and go through that process. So, with that being said, let's start with our first question. In one word, just one word, how would you describe your community's relationship with the museum? In one word, how would you describe your community's relationship with the museum? And again, the 217 number is off on the left side there, but I also know that there may be some folks who might want to speak into the mic too. So I want to hear some other voices besides mine. And when y'all start to answer these questions, if you're using your phone, like I said, they'll show up on the screen here. So I'll pause and look to see if anybody wants the mic. Or text a response.
There we go. I would say that the relationship is fair to okay.
Fair to okay. Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
I sent a text, but it didn't show up. So I'll just say it out loud. I would say that the relationship, in my opinion, with my community is very, very new and in the baby stages.
Mm.
And I would just say, okay.
You would just say okay. Okay. Oh, by the way, I forgot to click a button, so that's why y'all's for those of y'all who texted, that's why I didn't show up. So I already clicked the button. So if you want to resend it, it'll pop up this time. Apologies. So I got fair to okay, new, and new and okay is the other term that I wrote. Is there another? I mean, there's a lot of y'all in there, so sure there's another.
So I'm here representing the Education Center for the Vision Impaired, and as a center, we try to we don't advocate per se, but we try to make places aware of how they could better serve that community, and so we're here to present the idea tonight, and then you see where it goes. Is to put beacons in the museum. So here locally, we just did this with we just got a grant to do this at Lincoln Memorial Garden. So out there's going to be 12 sites that will put a beacon, and it's not just for the visually impaired. Anyone will be able to get a headset, and that the beacon is an electronic device that you record an audio of. A lot of museums have these around the country, around the world, but it's an audible that the hearing impaired or anyone can listen to and be described what is that particular location of the museum in this case. So we were here to introduce that idea, perhaps talk to somebody in the future as to how we could work together. And it would not just be for the visually impaired. That's who we are representing tonight, but it could be for anyone. And there is a local company that manufactures these. They distribute these. They sell them, really. So hopefully we can work together to make that happen.
Thank you. And what's the name of your organization again?
It's the Education Center for the Visually Impaired. We're local here in Springfield.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Lance, if we have Lance Tauser as our exhibits director, he's monitoring Facebook. Lance, if you have any comments from the Facebook crowd, please feel free to share.
Yes, the comments on Facebook include answers to your question, Richard, not inclusive. Another one was not forthcoming with information. Another one was disconnected. One was educational. And I think that's all that are currently on our comment board.
Okay. Okay. So we got a little bit of a variety, but one thing is clear is that at least from what we're hearing right now, there's definitely some room for improvement, and I think that's where a lot of our conversations, hopefully tonight will start to go to. But I want to. Oh, actually, jeez, Louise. All right, there we go. Now, and I'll dismiss the hopeful. I'll get that off of there. I want to broaden this out a little bit and think about the community on a whole. And as you think about yourselves, but also the community that you're in, what needs do you or your community have? What needs do you have? In preparation for this, while y'all are thinking and typing and the like, I went to a 2018, maybe 2019 United Way report for Springfield, and 4 things kept popping up in terms of poverty, homelessness, education, mental health. Like those are the 4 things that popped up. And I'm not talking about what the community needs that the museum can necessarily, provide support for. I just want to understand on a whole, what are the needs that you and the community have? Expensive tickets, local students. And identity. And as always, we're more than welcome. We want to invite people to fill the space up with the voices too. We represented in the history that we are taught in schools.
So
but also educational. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. One of the things I see that we don't have a whole lot of is meeting space that's available for nonprofits and other organizations to meet in the evening that is free. We have the regular library over here, city library, but it's often full.
Got you. So meeting space. Yeah, we have that same scenario here in Virginia. More online options to learn from this place. We need people in the community to be represented in the museum in all of our diversity. Consistent, knowledgeable, local historians, not just about Lincoln, but about the history of Illinois as well. Downtown growth. We're seeing that one report too. Risk takers, bold leaders who are willing to stop trying to expand and instead of investing inside the city. Okay. Lance, are you picking up anything on? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just want to say I second the motion that the gentleman made about the community space. Our grocery store here in town offers that, and I think that organizations like this that are saying now, I'm hearing a lot from this institute in the last year that they really want to do more in the community and build, relationships. And I think that community space for people to come in that are nonprofit that don't have office space. I'm with Black Lives Matter. We now have a small office space, but for years that was a major struggle of ours to find a place when we had meetings to be able to have a suitable space for that. In addition to that, I would like to see history outside of these walls. In Springfield, there is so much Black history that is, there's historical sites that are not prevalent and not taken care of. I feel like the museum has an opportunity to expand outside of these walls. You can, you can put placards on historic places, there's been, walking tours of different things, but I think that's just a way to get the community more involved. And if you walk through your neighborhood and you see, the first Black person who did this lived here and there's a plaque that tells about them, that is a way that people can get that education without having to come down here and buy a ticket and learn about it on a temporary, I can't think of what it's called, but the exhibits and things that don't stay forever. Right. So I think that's another opportunity for the museum to have a further impact and reach deeper into the community that it's now trying to, become a more substantial part of.
Thank you. No, thank you. That makes a lot of sense. I can understand that. Actually, I have another project in Austin, and we're having the same conversations with them.
I'd like for us not only to be at the table, for years, Black folks have said we're not at the table. Now, a lot of us in this room are at the table, but we need to be a part of helping select the menu or the agenda. Because some of the things, when I show up at the table, and I'm the state president for the NAACP, and if you don't know our history, the NAACP was founded because of the 1908 race riots here in Springfield. So now we're being invited to the table, but that's just head count. But we want to help not only select the menu or the agenda, because some of the things on the menu, I don't eat. So you need to find out what we're thirsty and what we're hungry for in our community and make sure that we're truly being fed. Social economics, educational, just outreach, encouragement, empowerment. And I can go on, but I won't dominate the conversation.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Was there another person there in the auditorium? If not, I'll check with Lance. Lance, did we have anything from Facebook?
Richard, we're posting all the Facebook comments through the text stream, so it's all happening live now. So I got a team up here helping me out.
All right, I appreciate it. So I'll go through and read some of these. Just keep reading some of these off. We've got inclusive economic development, reduced admission for groups other than schools. I'm not sure one exists right now. People know of it and visit it, but past that, I'm not sure one exists. I'm not reading that right. Is it? But oh, okay. And I'm curious as to this comment as to when it says, I'm not sure if one exists. The one that you're speaking about, are you talking about the community? Are you saying that you're not sure that the community exists right now? If anybody wants to clarify that for me, that would be helpful. Lincoln's views on race evolved. More museum ticket giveaways for local students to win. Free tickets are half off. Many students have been here for school trips, but it's a long time ago, and they're curious to see it again, but cannot afford it. Yeah, we had that situation in Minnesota where, you know, when we did a survey, everyone went to historic Forest Snelling in the 5th grade. But then you're 40 or 50 years old, and now you've had your second or third child, and that's the second time that you come back. So how do you create this sort of pipeline or this system where there's a level of relevance where people are coming, you know, more often? Pay what you can afford events, connections between different cultural institutions and other organizations, more collaboration, yes. Donate more tickets to nonprofits that are looking for donations, and consistent, accurate Black history teachings. Yes. Are there any other thoughts before we go to the next slide? This is really helpful. Thank you all. Okay, we're going to switch just a little bit. I want to be more specific now to ALPLM. Oh, let me hit this button. What can ALPLM offer that helps the community thrive? And I'm already getting some now in terms of, you know, history leadership led by history-minded people for the good of the whole community, not just political appointments. History in regards to Springfield history. Community needs are not so much that can be met by ALPLM. I just want to touch on this a little bit in that there is an institution that I know of, the Anacostia Museum. It's one of the Smithsonian museums. It's in DC. It's within the Black community. And when I tell you that my mind was blown to see how that institution was a part of dealing with some of the things that museums aren't traditionally associated with, it changed my whole perspective. And that's one of the reasons why I ask the questions the way that I do. Because once we know what the needs are, then there may be some ways where an institution can partner with somebody else or do some of the things that aren't necessarily traditional museum stuff, but it's community centered. And so I think there's, I just want to open this up a little bit because we might be able to find something down the road. Any other thoughts? What could the museum offer that would help the community thrive? This year, the organization, the museum organized a back to school event for kids for the first time, and it helped introduce the museum to younger generation. We need to ignite the young kids so they will keep coming back as older kids than adults. Yes. Needs economic development, investment in the East Side, the ISBE directive. I have to look that up. And African American history be taught, and not just in February. Yes. The museum needs to leave the museum and go talk to younger students, like outreach. Okay. Capture and share local stories, education and outreach into the community. Starting to see that hit in a few different places in terms of outreach. Partner with the African American Museum next to Oak Ridge Cemetery. Okay. And yeah. Community needs affordable housing, especially for homeless. Economic development in underserved areas, job expansion on the East Side. Job expansion. Museum could come and speak at some of the organizations in town. Some more outreach. Okay. Sure, look at the time. Okay. We breeze through a couple of these here real quick. This is one of the big ones. I'm looking back at some of your responses to the earlier question in terms of how you would describe the community's relationship with the museum. What I want to know now is what sort of thoughts you all have in terms of what are the types of things that we can put in place to ensure that the community feels that the museum is a community space? Like, what is it that the museum can do to ensure that the community feels like, it's a community space? And maybe it's not just the museum that's doing it, Partner with the Center for Lincoln Studies. Okay. Like there's something about how museums and historic sites can be venues that the community feels a sense of ownership. The Anacostia, the one I was talking about earlier, that's the type of vibe that they have where, the kids might go to the playground or they may go to the museum. Scholarships for research. Good. As the 100-year-old park ranger said, history is remembered by those in the room sharing. African American history must be included. Absolutely. Invite us on as a group to tour and maybe have an insight event for various organizations, like a couple of museums that I know do sort of community nights. More free swag that people could be proud to wear or display. Bring back free bumper stickers. They work. Okay. The community calendar for community groups that was previously mentioned. Opening the doors to the community can create great partnerships. Absolutely. And traveling exhibits throughout the community. Back to that one. Tell relevant community stories. Yes. Partner with the university to enable the master students to have internships, free summer research camps. See all about that research. Anybody have anything they want to voice? Invest in children, students to expose them to learning, the career paths, highlight and it's moving fast. Highlight and recognize current history being made, especially locally. Yes. And host events with schools where kids and parents can engage with history in a meaningful way. Lunch programs. That. Okay. Let me grab a couple more. Free scholarship for a week-long kids camp with the history emphasis. Kids camps are fun and get the community engaged. Okay. Got it. Okay, I'm going to go to the next question.
Pardon me for just a moment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I had a suggestion with a lot of families not having income to where they may be cutting cable and things like that, and they're using alternative methods to watch television. We're one of those families to where we made some of those cuts, and what we notice is some local organizations such as hospitals, somehow they're getting their advertisement on non-traditional methods. So for example, you may have a TV that connects to the internet, so you don't have cable and you're not subscribed to Hulu or Netflix or anything, but somehow Springfield Clinic gets an advertisement through. And so if ALPLM could find out how it is these other local businesses are getting through to families that may not subscribe to cable, then we can reach the portion of the community who may not see advertisements on any other way. So just looking at those alternative ways to reach the community to say, hey, you may not be in the financial area you want to be in, but don't forget about the local benefits.
Thank you. No, that's a really good point. And I'll catch up with the next few here. Partner with others, Diverse Voices Playwriting Initiative. 2022 Diverse Voices Playwriting Initiative is welcoming submissions. Okay. Highlights our students at an hour-long museum learning class on the free local access channel. Sponsor improves some of the Civil War sites in town. For example, Grant's March marker at Dubois Elementary School is super hard to find, making those things accessible. Tell an Illinois story as a whole, not focused on one area of the state. And then again, the partnering. I'm going to move to the next question because I think some of what we're starting to get right now is really, is really, being helpful in this case. And I had this situation in Austin where we were doing a similar sort of thing, and what we started to realize was that there were several initiatives that were happening at the same time, and there were also resources that were available that we weren't aware of. So when I thought about you all, I wanted to just ask, are there resources or initiatives that's in Springfield right now that we should be mindful of? So like if there's an initiative to here in Virginia, there's an initiative to be more inclusive of African American history within the school curriculums. And so they're really tackling that. So that's something that's of top of mind when we're talking, about those things here. So I just want to see if there's anything in you all's area in Springfield that, an initiative that's happening that might connect to this in some way.
So we are focusing in on 2025. We're trying to get a race riot monument here in Springfield that reflects the 1908 race riots. A few years ago, when they decided to put a high-speed rail through here, they discovered 5 additional houses that were burnt down during the race riots. And so now they've collected those artifacts, and we want a traveling museum. We want some of our artifacts to go to the Smithsonian in DC and the African American History Museum out there. There are pictures about the 1908 race riots, but there are no actual artifacts that people can touch and feel and really understand our story. And we want our story to be told from a Black perspective, and it hasn't. And that's not part of our history. And we have people in our community, in our state, who are trying to change the language of a race riot to a massacre. The term was race riot then, and that's what the NAACP locally, state, and national is sticking with as we move forward. So we want people to truly learn the history, understand the history, appreciate the history, and to know that the race riots in the NAACP is not just about Black folks, it's about all folks. It took all folks to come together saying enough is enough. And St. John's Hospital and HSS has been a big part of that. And Black and whites laid side by side as they were healing from being wounded during the race riot that took place here.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm seeing, there's other historic sites and resources that, can be considered for this. I guess what we're doing tonight. So thank you for that. LGBTQ history and school legislation. Okay. Present to East Side organizations to increase volunteer and docent pool. All right. Yeah. Okay. And could the museum check out travel historical boxes for teachers to use in the classroom? That way the museum goes into underserved populations without them finding funding for transportation and tickets cost to get here. Yeah, I'm very familiar with that. We did that in Minnesota, and it really did a big change. It really caused it was a big impact in terms of getting the history in front of folks who may not necessarily come to the museum. Partner with the Springfield Senior Center to acquire more free doses. Okay. All right. Let me go to the next one. My voice sounds weird over there. Oh, wait. Lincoln Colored Home Historic Site Preservation. Can somebody speak to this? Does anybody know? Was this coming from one of you all? No? Oh, wait.
Springfield has the Lincoln Children's Colored Home, which was the first Black orphanage here in Illinois. The building is dilapidated. They've tried to sell the building. Black organizations have tried to purchase the building and open it up to its original intent and have people to come through there and find out the history of this historical building. It is currently being owned by a Black family, but nothing's being done with the building. And it is a part of Springfield's history and the state history as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, let me move to the next question. Are there any other historic sites or places that inspire your thinking about what this museum could do for the community? I mentioned earlier, I come to this from my awareness of what the Anacostia is doing. But y'all have museums out there that I imagine are doing some really interesting work. I have some colleagues who are working out in that area. So are there any historic sites there or elsewhere that come to mind when you're thinking about what a museum or a site could do for the community? And if you don't have any, that's fine. This is one of those questions I pondered on whether I was going to keep here or not. Black Fire Station in town. And is that a that fire station? Is that an actual sort of still working, operating like museum, historic site?
The Masonic Lodge, the brothers have it. It was the first Black firehouse here in Springfield, and after the 1908 race riots, people went there for shelter. And they have renovated, redone the outside of the building as well as the inside. They have a lot of community organizations that come in to support it, but it is also a historical site. And when you talk about the race riots, the Children's Colored Home, the Masonic, the first Black fire station, they're all within walking distance of each other. We also have the Judge Thomas House, and that's one of the historical sites that was used for Black men in the trades in the construction, Taylor House, I'm sorry. and they've been wanting to tear it down, but we've been trying to restore that building as well. There is a lot of history on the east side of Springfield, and these buildings are not being taken care of. We don't have the financial or the funding to upkeep them. Zion Baptist Church in Springfield is the third oldest Black Baptist church in Illinois. It was also a site that people went to for shelter and protection after the 1908 race riots. But a lot of our community is not aware of it because we don't have the funding to maintain and upkeep these locations the way they should. And there aren't placards or markers to indicate this happened at this location, this happened at that location. So what the NAACP and some of our aldermen, Sean Gregory and a couple others had done, we've been doing bike tours, just riding around Springfield, going to the race riot markers, going to these historical sites, and having someone such as Catherine Harris, who's a retired librarian from this area and from, you know who Catherine is, talk about each of these sites. So we're doing our thing internally, but we need help financially to make it bigger and better and to educate and inform everyone, not only in Springfield, but outside of Springfield.
Got you. Thank you. We've got a historic sites only map. The specific sites, Museum of Science and History, Missouri History Museum. Yes, yes, yes. I know folks there. They're doing some really interesting stuff. Somebody says, I didn't even know about the Black Fire Station. Thank you. We need more information like this out there so we can be ambassadors of African American history. We just renamed Douglas Park to be named after a local Black war hero. And now named Duncan Park. It's not a historic site, but it's important as a step forward, and I agree. Chrissy Coleman's work at the American Civil War Museum in Richmond. Yeah, Chrissy's one of my mentors, so yeah, she did some amazing work there. She's doing some amazing stuff here at Jamestown Yorktown Foundation also. The Schomburg Center, yes, absolutely. And Illinois State Museum repatriation of indigenous objects. Yes, and I was just talking with their ED just recently about that. That's right. All right, I'm on question 6. I got a few more to go. Let's see if we can. Oh yeah. I love to ask this question because I want to challenge us to dream a little bit. If we were to go 5 years into the future, and what would you like to be able to brag about that the museum has been able to do to, for, and with the community? So think 5 years out, and you would, one of your relatives is coming to town, or anybody, and you're bragging about the work that the community and the museum have been able to do. What would you like to brag about?
Hey, Richard, it's been a few minutes with maybe some people joining late, especially online. Maybe remind people what the phone number is that they can text their answers to.
Yes, and on the left side here, the phone number that you can text your answer to is... Oh,
I'm sorry. I see I've done around the corner fully.
Oh, that's okay. I'll just say it, 217-292-6196. Be a place that is more reflective of the community. Okay. Richard Josie changed the trajectory of this place because he took a delicate topic and normalized it so we could have a good discussion and make this place better. Oh, well, okay. I can dig that. I'd love to be able to say that. That would be cool, but I'm really concerned about y'all and the kids that's coming up. Let's see what we can do with them. Consistent, strong partnerships with NFPs in town. Can somebody tell me what is NFPs?
Not for profits.
Not for profit. All right, thank you. And I should plug this in. All right. And all Springfield schools participate in Illinois History Day. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, Richard, we have a comment here in the
Yes.
audience. Hey, I talk about bragging. I want to brag on the museum and the library for the past 15 years and what it's meant for this community. I know in a pandemic year, we celebrated the 5 millionth visitor. And the economic impact, it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars to the city of Springfield. So, what we continue to do for the next 5 years is generate tens of thousands of visitors annually. And by the way, I'm Scott Dahl, the tourism director for the city of Springfield. So I'm in that sphere, and I see it every day. And so for me, the museum and the library is such a blessing. So grateful to have this kind of institution in our city, as well as our historic sites that we have. We have more Lincoln historical sites than any city in the world. We have world-class sites. We've got Route 66. We have history, culture. So for me, it's what the library museum has done for the past 15 years. So a little brag on the team here and the institution.
No, and I appreciate that. I tell all my clients and all the people that I work with, sometimes we got to make sure we stop and smell the roses. I mean, there's always work to do, but there's also some time to really kind of internalize what we have done well, and as well as what we can do better. So I appreciate that a lot. More diversity on staff, greater accessibility. Where did it go? Oh, greater accessibility to programs, exhibits, and services. The theater regularly features diverse voices from the community. Staff is diverse. Not only Black history, but other Civil War era populations that were marginalized, such as Indigenous people and Irish Catholics. Absolutely. Consistent events in the evening that highlight diversity and bring in our diverse community and allows them to see themselves in the history. That the museum is considered a place for all, that all over the city, people see it as their own. Exactly. Okay, I can dig it. They don't have to like everything, but they don't reject it. They weigh in with helping create change. Powerful statement. Thank you for that. Are there any others in the auditorium? Creating more hired positions and relying less on volunteers. Okay, I see that we are running out of time, and I am finishing up my last couple of questions. Let me move to the next slide here. So my question for you all, and just remember the number, 217-292-6196. The list that you all see there are just a range of themes. And I want you to think about what you know about the museum, and I just really want to hear from y'all as to what themes to you all are themes that you would like to see more of within the scope of the experience. So are we talking more about power? Should we talk more about religion? How about segregation or oppression, aging? Like I really wanted to put this to you all just to kind of get a sense as to if there are any themes that resonate with you that you would like to see coming out of experiences at the museum. And I'll leave this up for a couple moments while y'all kind of work through those and look through those, and then I'll go back to the other slide so we can see what pops up. An honest history of Lincoln. Systemic nature of racism. Resiliency. Okay. more positive Black history. Hakeem Jeffries was presenting at a conference this morning, and he talked about the need for more Black joy. We are often overwhelmed with being told of our struggles and oppression, but not celebrated for our victories to balance that. And that's an important point, because some of my work also, speaks to historical trauma and the manner in which the stories that we tell and the stories that we don't tell, are we perpetuating this trauma down to the next generations? Something we've been considering a lot about. But the financials and the ability for the museum to work these ideas, I think we're going to work that. But partnership, more art from Black artists during the Lincoln era. Art rocks, unites us all. Got partnership again. Got more art, nuance, more women included. Okay. Community. Yeah. Peace. All right, let me get to these last two, and I think they'll be pretty quick. So one of the challenges, and what we're really trying to do here with all of this sort of information, is really get to identifying a plan and sort of guidelines for how to create that stronger connection between the museum and the community. It's going to, definitely talking about, what does that collaborative environment look like? And so I'm just curious as to how might any one of you all want to be involved with future efforts to create that stronger connection. A couple of examples, at one site that I worked at, we actually formed a community council, and that body of people, like the organization created a memo of understanding, a MOU, with this body of members of the community to partner to create things that happen within the community. It was a true-on partnership. I've actually seen that happen twice. And the other example that I had was that one's a little different. That one is where descendants of enslaved peoples entered into a partnership with an institution here in Virginia at the board level. So they're like full-on equal partners of what happens at that historic site at a board level. So somebody was saying earlier about this is from NAACP, was talking about, not just being at the table, but selecting the menu and the agenda. Those descendants are in that position right now, Montpelier, here in Virginia. But are there any thoughts as to how you all might want to be engaged with future efforts? Partner or advertise state retirement systems to get more volunteers, docents, and visitors. State government town with many state retirees retiring early. We need to harness that niche to our advantage. Yeah. For the last question, how history works, who writes it, how it gets rewritten, how the present era influences interpretation. And that was, I think you're saying that was for the last question. I'll make that note here. Any other thoughts? And at the end of this, I'm going to show you all my email address too. So if there was something that you wanted to get into the table, but you weren't able to, you could just shoot me an email directly. More talks like this is needed. Okay. Form a community group for regular feedback. I'm glad you said that. Is there another? Donation. Okay. Community council idea. Yeah, I do too. I really like that idea. It seems to, every time I've seen it played out, it's played out really well. A couple of seconds. Allow the Board of Trustees more power to create these opportunities. Okay. Okay, and I want to be conscious of your time. I see it's already 7:02 y'all's time. So let me get to my final question. Just kind of thinking about continued conversations. If we were to continue this conversation, what would you hope to be discussed? Like, what is it that we didn't talk about tonight that needs to be part of some future conversations?
I think that we would like to hear from ALPLM themselves to see what they want to do. And I'm the new Ward 5 alderwoman, and the museum lies right here within my ward. So I will definitely be making sure that we have a partnership and participating in the community. Just having a strong presence is a start, but having this dialogue and conversation, we're saying what the issues or what the problem is, but what is the solution now? So flip the script and put the ball in the museum's court. So I think it should be a second discussion followed after this so that we can hear from the museum, and they took in all of these ideas and comments. And now what do you want to do? And hopefully I could help facilitate too.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Steps to set these plans discussed into place. Action steps, absolutely. That's why I'm here. I'm so looking forward to starting to get some things down, and been anticipating and looking for this conversation. How to bring the museum out of the building and bring it into communities and homes. Action plans to implement these concerns and these thoughts. Hoping to discuss the relationship between the museum and the state government. The power of tourism and how it affects the museum's decision making. Are they for us or out of town visitors? Okay. Outreach action plans. So let me at least give you all my last two slides, because I want to make sure that you all, and I'll leave that so that anybody who's responding, it'll still populate in there. I want to say thank you. I appreciate it. I know at least it's awkward for me because I'm looking at a screen and y'all on the other side of the screen, and the vibe is different, but I appreciate y'all sitting with me and working with me through this tonight. This is my email address. If there are any other thoughts that come to mind, richard.josie@collectivejourneys, all one word, .org. Sorry for the long collective journeys part. I don't know what I was thinking when I pulled it together, but please send me an email with any other thoughts that you all may have. There's this African proverb that says that it takes a village to raise a child. And I've been one to kind of remind people that, in some ways we're at a place right now where we have to develop or redevelop that village. And so I think that's the case that's the case I got in Austin, and maybe that's here too. I noticed what we got going on here in Virginia. So I'm going to unshare this. So we can get back to the big screen. So Christina, that's what I got. If anybody has any questions there, I'll be happy to answer any questions, or maybe Christina can answer some. But I just want to say thank you all so much for your input.
Well, thank you, Richard, for being with us virtually. It's amazing all the things we've been able to do this year, right?
Exactly.
And thank all of you for being here. I can't tell you how much I really appreciate it. I was sitting in the back taking notes, listening, hearing. We will have this event is, like I said, being live streamed on Facebook, so it's being saved. So I encourage you to send it to people that you know, encourage them to watch it. Folks that I know we've got faith leaders, so send it to your congregations, send it to your members in your clubs and in your organizations, and let them see that. And we'll continue to collect feedback and collect comments from that. You've got Richard's email, of course, richard.josie. You're also welcome to, of course, email me directly, christina.shutt@illinois.gov, although Richard's probably faster on responding back. I get a lot of emails. But we really do, again, thank you for your feedback today. You also got cards. So if there was something that you really wanted to say that you didn't feel comfortable putting on the screen or saying at the microphone, you're also welcome to write those down. If you think of something later, write it down, drop it off at the front desk of the museum, and they'll make sure that it gets to me. I really do read all of the comments. The other thing that I think is important that I'll mention, which you may not know is going on as well, is that all of our volunteers, so we have about 500 volunteers who work and serve and do an incredible job here at the museum, and all of our volunteers are equipped with notebooks and pens and paper in those notebooks to write down comments and feedback. So again, as you come and visit the museum, as you see people visit the museum, let them know that we're doing it. I individually read every single comment that comes through those notebooks. I get a nice typed up sheet at the end of the month, and so we read those and we work to address things, but also identify areas where we can grow and improve, and longer term strategies as well as the short term ones. So like I said, we are collecting feedback. I am reading those. I am seeing those, because when we say that we are a community, we want to be a community organization, we want to be a museum that you're proud of, not just for your out-of-state visitors, but that you're proud to be a part of and proud to have in this community in Springfield. That we and I truly mean that. So thank you again for your time tonight. We again really appreciate y'all. Have a wonderful evening and a safe drive home.